You arrive at the infirmary with two of the loudest students in Class 1A, acting as your self appointed honor guard. And how does Recovery Girl handle the explosive offering of Bakugo and the frantic questioning of Kirishima? Does she end up kicking them out just so she can give you the actual medical attention you need? Or does she put them to work, which would make them a bit useful? The training session had ended an hour ago, but you were still in the common room when Bakugo and Kirishima finally came in from the gym, loud and flushed and smelling like sweat and effort. "Hey, we won," Kirishima announced to no one in particular, grinning widely, still bouncing on his heels the way he always did after a good sparring match. "I totally won. You fell on your ass twice," Bakugo said flatly, dropping onto the couch beside you. His shoulder pressed against yours, and he didn't move away. That was his version of affection, and by now, you knew better than to point it out. "Tactical fails," Kirishima said, flopping into the chair across from you, stretching his arms above his head. You laughed, and that was your mistake. The laugh pressed your ribs wrong. Just for a second, a sharp involuntary wince that crossed your face before you could school it away. He turned toward the TV like you were adjusting your position, like nothing had happened. "But you've been sitting between these two for almost 8 months. Nothing slipped past them anymore." "Hey," Kirishima's voice had lost its lightness. "What was that?" "What was what?" you said, keeping your voice easy. "That face." He sat forward now, elbows on his knees. "You just flinched." "I didn't flinch, I shifted." "That was a flinch," Bakugo said. He wasn't looking at the TV. He was looking at you. "You've been weird since dinner. Moving slow." "I'm tired." "No, that's not it. You're lying." He said it like a fact, not an accusation. His jaw was tight. You looked between them, Kirishima's wide, worried red eyes, Bakugo's jaw working, like he was chewing through something he wanted to say louder. You felt something in your chest sink. "It's not a big deal," you said finally. "Show me," Bakugo said. "Katsuki." "Show me." The silence was the kind that had weight. You looked at Kirishima, hoping for an out, but he just gave you a small, careful shake of his head. "Don't try it." You sighed. Slowly, you lifted the hem of your shirt on the left side, just a few inches. The bruise had spread further than yesterday. A deep, ugly purple-green thing that bloomed from your lower ribs down toward your hip. It was bad. You'd known it was bad since the moment you took the hit in yesterday's training, when your back caught the edge of a practice wall at the wrong angle, and something had popped in a way that made your vision wide out for a second. Kirishima made a sharp sound, something between a gasp and a curse. He was on his knees in front of you before he could cover it again, and his hands hovered over it, big, warm, not quite touching. "When did this happen?" he said, voice controlled in a way that meant he was working to keep it that way. "Yesterday." "Yesterday?" He looked up at you. "You've been walking around with this since yesterday?" "It didn't feel this bad yesterday." "It never feels as bad as it looks," Bakugo said from beside you. He was very still. That was worse than if he'd been loud. "Did you go to Recovery Girl?" "No." A muscle in his cheek ticked. "Why?" "Because it's just bruising. It's not broken." "You don't know that," Kirishima said. He was still looking at the bruise, and you watched him force himself to look away from it, back up at your face. His expression was doing something complicated. You don't know that, he repeated, softer this time. Iji, he said gently. Don't Iji me right now. He sat back on his heels. Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you tell us? You were quiet for a moment. Outside, someone in the dorms was laughing about something. Life going on normally the way it always did. I didn't want to make it a whole thing. You said, it's training. Everyone gets hurt in training. I didn't want to seem. Seem what? Bakugo's voice was quiet. Dangerously quiet. Um, weak, I guess. You admit. The words settled over all three of you. Then Bakugo made a sound in the back of his throat that was almost a laugh, except it wasn't funny at all. He rubbed the hand over his face, pressed his palm against his mouth for a moment. You're an idiot, he said, but his voice had gone rough at the edges. Oh, super, Kirishima agreed, but he reached out and took your hand where it rested on your knee. His grip was careful, deliberate. You don't have to do that, Bakugo said. He wasn't looking at you now, looking at the floor. Be tougher than you need to be. Not with us. It was one of the most unguarded things he'd ever said. You knew what it cost him. Katsuki, you said quietly. He finally looked at you. Something in his expression had cracked open, just slightly. The way it only ever did, when it was just the three of you, late and quiet, nowhere else to be. You're going to recover, girl, tonight, he said. Not a discussion. It's late. Tonight. Kirishima squeezed your hand. We'll go with you, he said. And on the way back, you're getting the couch and the good blankets. And we're not training again until she clears you. And you're going to let us take care of you without arguing about it. He looked at you steadily. Deal? He looked at both of them. Kirishima with his heart right there on his face, and Bakugo with his walls back up, but his eyes still soft at the corners, and felt something loosen in your chest that had nothing to do with the bruise. You're both insufferable, you said. So, deal? Kirishima repeated. Deal. Bakugo stood first and offered his hand down to you, which he almost never did. And when you took it, he pulled you carefully to your feet, and he held on a second longer than necessary. And neither of you mentioned it. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you like this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and goodbye.